This group of astronauts has discovered an alien ship orbiting Halley's Comet, and inside they find what appears to be a human woman, but she is actually something way worse. A combined team of British and American astronauts is heading toward Halley's Comet to inspect it, in an aircraft named Churchill. As they approach the comet, the radar picks up an unknown object flying alongside it. The object appears to be 150 miles in length, 2 miles in height, and strangely, not made of any known metal. The captain, Tom Carlson, tells the crew to relay the information to Mission Control on Earth, but their radio is down because they are too close to the comet. Carlson says that he and a team of astronauts are going to go out and investigate the object. Carlson and the other astronauts spacewalk and approach the object. They find an entrance into it, and one of the astronauts remarks how it looks kind of like a giant artery. Carlson says he feels like he's been here before. As they go deep into the object, they encounter its occupants, which are hundreds and thousands of bat-like creatures that appear to be dead. After admiring them for a minute, they decide to take one back to the ship in order to study it. Just then, outside, the massive object begins to open up like an umbrella, and inside, a pathway lights up. Carlson says they have to go into it and investigate. Following the light, Carlson enters a room where there are thousands of crystal casings. The 3 casings in the middle of the room contain what appear to be perfectly preserved human bodies. 2 of them are male, and 1 is a breathtakingly beautiful female. The sight of the woman seems to mess with Carlson's head, and when one of his colleagues arrives, he feels something too. They decide to take these bodies, along with the bat-like one from the other room, back to the ship. 30 days later, Mission Control back on Earth tells director Dr. Leonard Bukovsky that the Churchill has been out of contact for a while now and appears to be in a free fall toward the Earth. It is decided that a second mission should be sent up to space to investigate what has happened to the Churchill. The second mission docks with the Churchill, and the astronauts enter the spacecraft to find that there has been a fire incident. All personnel aboard the Churchill appear to have been burned to death. However, the astronauts find that the 3 bodies inside the crystal casings remain unharmed. They decide to bring the bodies down to Earth with them. Back on Earth, a committee discusses the bodies and the casings. Dr. Bukovsky says that the casings are not crystal, neither are they metal or organic. They are strangely both physically present and not present at the same time. Regarding the bodies, the committee says they want to perform a dissection, granted that the expert in biochemistry, Dr. Fallada, declares the bodies dead. Dr. Fallada says that he is not qualified to declare alien death. Next, Bukovsky observes through cameras as the body of the woman lies in the operating room, and a bunch of doctors leave after making observations. He leans back in his chair. The guard standing outside is drawn to the woman and enters the operating room. As he is about to touch her, she opens her eyes and sits up straight, flashing her alien melons in his face. She approaches him and kisses him. Bukovsky sees all this and rushes toward the operating room. While the 2 people kiss, some electrical phenomenon starts taking place in the room as a blue light spins around them. It appears that the guard is no longer enjoying the kiss. Bukovsky arrives and finds the guard's body completely decayed and rotting. The woman approaches him and tells him to use her body. Meanwhile, Fallada arrives in Bukovsky's room and sees all this happening on the camera. He rushes toward the operating room. He arrives to find Bukovsky in terrible shape. Bukovsky tells Fallada that the woman has done all this, and Fallada alerts the building security. The building security attempts to capture the woman, but she uses some sort of supernatural powers to subdue them, and then proceeds to use the same powers to break the glass windows and escape. Colonel Kane from the Special Air Services is assigned to the case, and he arrives and questions Bukovsky and Fallada. They tell him everything, including some things that they haven't revealed to the public yet, such as the fact that escape pod of the Churchill is missing. Bukovsky admits that the woman is an overwhelmingly feminine presence, and the sexual attraction is incredibly hard to resist. It's almost like mind control. Fallada reveals to Kane that while he is a biochemist, his real interest is studying death, and particularly what happens after people die. Kane asks him if there is life after death, and he replies yes. He says that the energy or the life force of a person is conserved even after death. Kane asks if that is related to what has happened with the guard, and Falada says yes. He says the woman drained the guard of his life force completely and drained Bukovsky partially, which is why he's in a bad shape. Kane says that almost makes the woman a vampire. 2 soldiers are guarding the other 2 male alien bodies when an explosion occurs and the males wake up. The soldiers shoot at the males, but to no avail, so they throw grenades at them instead. Hearing the commotion, Falada and Kane arrive, and they find that the 2 males have been blown to bits from the grenades. Next, doctors prepare to perform an autopsy on the guard, and in the middle of the IT, the guard wakes up. As one of the doctors goes near the guard, he starts sucking the life force out of him. The guard becomes normal again, and the doctor's body lies decaying and rotting. Falada orders the guard to be placed in isolation. He says that the guard woke up exactly 2 hours after being attacked by the vampire, and this time window might repeat. Kane receives a call which tells them that the vampire has claimed another victim in a local park. Falada and Kane go to collect the body of the victim. Next, as per Falada's prediction, 2 hours later the guard starts returning to his rotting condition. After squirming around for a bit, he falls and stops moving. Falada deduces that once infected by the vampire, the victims need regular transfusions of life force, or they'll decay again. He checks the guard and sees that his insides have turned to dust. The same thing happens to the doctor and the woman they found at the park. Home Secretary Percy Heseltine asks them where the bodies of these vampires came from, and they have no answer, but Bukovsky arrives and says that mystery might be solved soon, as the escape pod of the Churchill has landed in Texas, with Carlson in it. Carlson arrives at the Space Research Center, or SRC, in London to speak with Bukovsky, Kane, and Falada. They ask him what happened on the Churchill. Carlson explains that after they brought the 3 human bodies and the bat-like creature on board, several of the crew members reported feeling drained and tired. And then, one by one, they all started to die. All crew members turned into rotting and decaying bodies. Carlson says he doesn't know how he survived. He assumes that it had something to do with his will. Knowing that he could not allow those bodies to reach Earth, Carlson was the one who set fire to the Churchill before evacuating in the escape pod. Carlson says that even though he knew the woman killed his entire crew, leaving her to die was the hardest thing he ever did. For some reason, he did not want to leave her. Next, Bukovsky tells Kane that the object that was around the comet is now headed for Earth. Carlson has a dream in which the vampire woman visits him. She makes love to him, but instead of her draining him, they both seem to drain each other. Carlson wakes up screaming, and when Falada and Kane arrive, he informs them that he seems to have a mental connection with the vampire woman. Falada has an idea. Falada hypnotizes Carlson and gets him to exploit his connection with the vampire woman to see inside her mind. Carlson sees that the vampire woman is inside a different woman's body now. Apparently, that is something she can do. The woman's name is Ellen. She seduces a man to give her a lift so that she can draw life force from him. However, now she is only drawing a little life force so that she doesn't leave a trail of bodies behind her, which can get her caught. Carlson reads the man's license plate, which allows them to track him, and the woman Ellen as well. Next, Falada is in his office, and he has ordered some kind of ancient sword. A sergeant arrives to visit him, and he has a rather nasty look on his face. Carlson, Kane, and Percy trace the woman Ellen to a mental hospital. She's a nurse. As they arrive at the hospital, they are greeted by the director of the hospital, Dr. Armstrong, who takes them to Ellen. Carlson and Kane visit Ellen, and Carlson interrogates her thoroughly, only to find out that the vampire woman has left her body. Because the vampire was once in Ellen, Carlson can read her mind, and he finds out a description of the next body the vampire is in. He gives the description to Dr. Armstrong, and he informs them that it refers to one of their patients. The group visits the patient with the intent to give him a sedative and hypnotize him, but at the last minute, Kane and Carlson give the sedative to Armstrong instead. They take him to a different room to interrogate him. Carlson says when Armstrong touched him, he felt the vampire inside his mind, and he informed Kane secretly. He adds that it seems the sedative is keeping the vampire trapped in Armstrong's body. Carlson interrogates the vampire, and she tells him that her body is irrelevant. She formed this body by reading Carlson's mind when he entered the vampire ship. It's a picture of Carlson's perfect female. She tells Carlson she loves him and commands him to touch her. Carlson yells at her to let him go, but at the same time he is drawn to her. He kisses her, or rather Armstrong, and an explosive exchange of Lifeforce happens, which throws the others backwards. Kane gives Armstrong more sedatives to make it stop. As Carlson gets free, he immediately says the words, "It's already spreading, you didn't stop it." Kane asks him why he said that, and they deduce that they didn't capture all of the vampire's victims, which means her infection is probably spread to all of London by now. They find out that amidst the pandemonium, Percy broke his neck and died. They get on a helicopter to go back to London and receive a transmission from Falada. He tells them that the two male vampires weren't killed, their minds just went into different bodies. He has killed one of them using a leaded sword, because that's what legend says kills vampire. He adds that vampire legends are definitely based on these creatures. Just then, blood starts coming out of Armstrong, and it takes the shape of the vampire woman. The blood explodes, and Carlson says she has escaped. Then, Carlson admits to Kane that he was the one who opened the vampire's casing back on the Churchill. He says he felt in love on an inhuman level with the woman. It controlled his mind. He kissed her, and they both exchanged life force with one another. He says that she deliberately killed everyone on the ship except him, and he doesn't know why. Carlson and Kane arrive in London to find that the whole city has been infected, and chaos has erupted. Martial law has been imposed. They visit the Prime Minister to brief him, but find out that he and the people in his office are also infected. They quietly leave. Next, they arrive at a military base, where they learn that the vampire ship is now in orbit directly over London. Carlson says that all the life force being released is being collected by the male vampire and sent up to the ship. He also says that he feels the vampire woman calling him. He says he still has some of her life force and she wants it back. She gave it to him because she mated with him to learn about humans. Without telling Kane, Carlson steals a military vehicle and leaves, telling the army he's going to the SRC. Kane takes a gun and a car from the military and follows him. Driving through a city full of infected people, Carlson instead arrives at a cathedral, where the vampire woman is. Meanwhile, Kane arrives at the SRC and finds Falada. He tells Kane that the vampire woman is at the cathedral, and then Kane realizes that he is also infected. He shoots Falada in the chest, killing him. Kane fights his way through a city full of the infected to reach the cathedral, where his path is blocked by the other male vampire. He stabs the male with Falada's sword, and the male turns into its original bat form before perishing completely. Kane goes inside and finds Carlson one floor below, viciously making out with the vampire woman. Carlson asks her why does he feel so connected to her, and she tells him that he is actually one of them. He always has been. Kane calls out to Carlson, and Carlson extends his hand. Kane drops the sword, and Carlson catches it and runs it through the vampire woman and himself. Both of them turn into light and get raised up to the vampire ship, which then stops sucking up life force from London. The ship is pushed back toward Halley's Comet. On the ground, Kane watches the sky, while the sacrifice of Carlson has saved possibly the whole world. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.